the American Indian is of the soil, whether it be the region of forests, plains, pueblos, or mesas. He fits into the landscape, for the hand that fashioned the continent also fashioned the man for his surroundings. He once grew as naturally as the wild sunflowers. He belongs just as the buffalo belonged. According to the 2010 U.S. Census, there are an estimated 2.9 million American Indians and Alaskan Natives in the United States. California has the highest population of Native Americans, with the largest population per county in Los Angeles. Today, the total population of Native peoples is more than 5 times greater than the population recorded by the 1960 U.S. Census. Along with the tremendous population increase within the past 50 years, comes a renewed effort to preserve Native American traditions and heritage. As one who has always been interested in Native American culture, I have often wondered what it means to be a Native American in the 21st century. So my quest will be to show how Native Americans living in and around Los Angeles remember their heritage and keep their unique cultural identity alive. To do this, I interviewed both people with Native roots and those without. I first asked each interviewee to explain a little about his or her background and connection to Native American culture.
I moved to California in 1965. I was interested in Native American culture at that time. I worked as a research assistant to Clyde Kluckhohn, who was an anthropologist at Harvard University, and I revised his book on the Navajo. He passed away in 1960. Doubleday then contacted me and asked if I would revise the book written in and published in 1940 by Clark Whistler, Indians of the United States.
I went to Indiana University in 1962 as an Indian, and in 1962 I was considered a colored person, and then they looked at me and said, "Oh, you're not what we thought." And I said, "What?" I'm half French, but I'm Indian.
I was born in East Los Angeles, so I've been in LA my whole life. My family is from Mexico, so my mother has indigenous relatives on her side who are from the western coast. They're Tarascan. I always knew that I had indigenous relatives in Mexico, but it was never something my family talked about. In Mexico, it's almost shameful to be associated with the indios, they call them, derogatorily in Spanish.
What brought me up to Pow-wow originally was the little museum that they have. I'm a career museum person and anthropologist, and Native American basketry is my specialty.
Today is the 16th annual Pasadena Pow-wow here at the William Carey University with the Gabriel and Shoshone Indian Nation. My people come from the San Gabriel Mission.
In today's society, Native peoples have more freedom to practice their way of life and teach younger generations about their heritage. But throughout our history, Native American culture has been repressed and misunderstood. Many Native languages and traditions were either nearly or completely lost when Natives were forbidden by law to participate in these essential parts of their cultural identity.
Until 1979, with the Native American Freedom of Religion Act, it was against the law to practice our culture and religion.
In the 20th century, many Native American children were sent off to boarding schools, where not only were they taken away from their families, but they were also prohibited from speaking their native tongues.
My grandmother and grandfather were the chief and spiritual leader of the tribe. They fought hard to keep our traditions alive. And in 1968, they were allowed to speak their language again. That's how hard it was to be a Native here in California.
The languages of these Southern California Indian tribes were basically lost. There are no fluent speakers of those languages now. The advocates for Indigenous California language survival sponsor several things. One is the Breath of Life, which goes to Berkeley archives and teaches tribes how to research words in their language and recover them. Every other year they have gatherings of people who are immersed in recovering their languages.
While there has been much progress made in relearning original languages and traditions, there are still areas where Native peoples advocate for the rights to be allowed to practice their way of life.
Sprouters. This one needs to be gathered, these low branches and this dead wood cut out. And that's something that Native people would have done on a regular basis. But the Forest Service says, no, you can't touch that. Smokey the Bear, you know. So, but we're getting to the point that they're allowing us and they're seeing the value of managing it that way.
Despite the ongoing concerns, many laws restricting Native American culture have been eliminated, allowing Native people to recapture their heritage and openly practice their beliefs. Within the last 50 years alone, great strides have been made for Native American rights. In order to show how perceptions regarding Native American culture have changed over the last 50 years, I reviewed the book Indians of the United States.
The book by Clark Whistler, Indians of the United States, has a rather interesting paper dust jacket. Notice the very fancy headdress, the weapon, the pipe. In the middle of the 20th century, I think this was sort of the stereotype of quote, the American Indian. Of course, the problem is there is no the American Indian, since there's a bunch of different tribes, different peoples, different ways, different histories, and this is only one.
The book examines the Native Americans' struggle to resist the advancing frontier, their mode of life and its modifications due to residing among white people, and the Indian personalities of the time. The book was groundbreaking in that it was the first to truly acknowledge the vast and complex cultures of each tribe, as compared with only viewing the Native people as a stereotypical whole.
Just to make the point that there are many ways of life, let's see what Clark Whistler had to say. We first think of an Indian as living in a teepee, flashing in beadwork from moccasins to headband, wearing a gorgeous feather headdress, long braids of black hair, tomahawk, hand drum, tom-tom, scalping knife, and most important of all, a red stone pipe with a gaily decorated stem as long as your arm. All these highly original objects are of true Indian origin, but the picture is a composite, welded together partly under white influence, and the reader now knows that this picture presents a generalized Indian rather than the reality. If one had walked through the United States about 1600, he would have noted ever-changing styles of clothing, housing, and standards of living. Speech, too, would have been different at every village or camp.
The author did research Native people's history and culture in a fairly objective way, but some of the perceptions of his time period were evident, especially in the way the book refers to Native people as they. The book could not truly capture the Native American voice, especially in regards to today's Native culture.
I'd much rather hear a Native American voice about some situation or instance or even a cultural item than my voice, which is not Native American and nowhere near as knowledgeable.
So in order to document the Native voice and discover how they remember their heritage and maintain their unique cultural identity, I attended several Native American events. I wanted to understand how their traditions have changed over the years and what it means to be a Native American in the modern world.
A powwow like we're having here was actually the tradition is a place where different tribes would get together and they would talk and trade and have marriages and whatever they're going to do. Nowadays, the powwow is a gathering, basically sort of the same way, but it's more of our church. But it's a gathering place for all of us to keep our culture and our religion alive. The people out there are out here to praise God, out here to praise the Creator, and it all depends on who you believe in. Our way is that if you see our medicine wheel, it's round in a circle, the cross in the center. Okay, and we have 4 colors on these, and each color is a direction. So there's black, white, red, and yellow. And depending on the tribe, these colors will be in certain areas, and they all have their own meanings. But in the inside of that, there's a cross, and it's purple or royal blue, and that means the Creator. That's God's color. So if you look at the colors, red, yellow, black, white, that's all of our people. That's everybody from here. So we all own part of that circle.
Welcome to Hautemakna American Indian Cultural Center. It is the place where people come to gather. It's a Tongva word. Anything that ends in NGA means the place where something is or something happens in the Gabrielino Tongva language. And this was a place at the end of the summer, beginning of the fall, where 5 different tribes came together to gather the bounty of the mountains, to camp, to share stories, songs, have family reunions. We offer a way of connecting back to the earth and keeping those traditions, that heritage, and that survival alive. We do feel that there are tools that people can use to get back into balance with the earth and understand this world that the Creator gave us. You know, this is an important, beautiful, complex system that was created not just for us, but for all living things.
There was a very deep connection before between people and the earth and each other. Everything was connected to the earth, everything was a spiritual thing. And I think that's something that's kind of going away, you know, and people in the city especially, you know, you're just covered in pavement and concrete.
Many Native people seek to not only remember and practice their heritage, but also help others understand their culture.
My partner, Brian Brightcloud, and myself believe that the Pow-wow is for everybody. We all come from the same place. We all believe in the same God. And we believe the circle is our church.
I always feel welcome here. If you're interested in Native American culture, even if you don't know anything, it's a beautiful place to come up to. There's always something to learn. There's always a lot of friendly people willing to share their knowledge.
We as white Americans have been the recipients of many Native American traits and blessings. It seems to me that the main attitude from those of us who are not Native American has been hopefully more tolerance, more appreciation for the reality, and frankly, I like to hear the voice of the person who's speaking, because the cultures are all very, very different.
The question, what does it mean to be a Native American in the 21st century, is not easily answered. As with all groups, Native American society is wonderfully diverse. Each tribe, each person has different traditions and beliefs, and each person interacts with their cultural heritage in a different way.
If the Creator made all these different areas, no two exactly alike, then the Creator made all these different peoples because they were there to keep that balance. You know, now we're all mixed up, and I've got roots in Marseille, and I got roots in Hoopa, and I live in Topanga. But that makes me unique, so therefore I can sing my song and be a unique individual, yet part of that circle of dynamic balance.
It is clear that many Native peoples want to remember their heritage and worldview, even though they interact with modern society's culture as well.
I live in both worlds.